Oh, we're starting already. Should we start? We should give some time, right? Just
We'll give some
3 more
time.
minutes.
That's fine.
Mm-hmm. Good morning to everybody. Sorry, my voice is so gone because I was sick the whole day. I will just introduce Dr. Gideon and hand over, but let's just wait for 2 more minutes before handing over.
That's good.
Yeah. Hmm. Okay, perfect. Yeah, warm greetings. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are tuning in from. We thank, President Dr. Bill for always opening the Zoom link for us. That's the Zoom we always go back to for our Power and Waffle events. So because I'm having problems with my chest now, I will just hand over to Dr. Gideon. He will introduce himself and just take over the show. And let's just sit back and enjoy. He has a story to tell us about finances, and we are excited to hear this. Thank you very much, Dr. Gideon, and I give you the mic.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Reverend Dr. For-Mukwai. And thanks to my mentor, Dr. BLD, for setting this up with you and with your approval. So, to everyone who is here, appreciate you joining. By way of an introduction, I just want to say that I consider myself a product of Africa, produced in Asia, packaged in America, and distributed worldwide. When it comes to the distribution part, it gets a little bit tricky because there are 2 or 3 areas in which I feel that my distribution is economically viable. In the area of crisis resilience, in the area of business communication or storytelling, to be more precise, and to a limited extent, leadership development. I have been fortunate to grow up in Cameroon. I have also been very fortunate to have spent a lot of time in Singapore in Southeast Asia. I've spent a good amount of time in Botswana and South Africa. And I came to US around 2007 for graduate school in Reno, Nevada. And I've spent most of the time here since then, except with a little bit of time going back to Asia. Today, I want to talk about financial resilience. You may say, how did you get into that? Well, I got into that by sheer accident. However, I've always been part of resiliency because I was a fire captain in Singapore, working for the Singapore government, fighting fires, responding to incidents all across the island. And once in every month, I'll be what they call the fire duty officer in charge of watching over the entire island. If there's any accident or anything that happens, I have to be the first command officer that gets to the site and then informs the rest of the country whatever is going, especially with respect to the Ministry of Home Affairs. So when I left that job as a fire captain and started founding my own training company, I've always stayed around the corridors of resiliency, but I never thought about financial resiliency until the pandemic started. Oh my goodness. Prior to the pandemic, I was a corporate trainer, traveling all across America, conducting leadership and communication seminars, mostly on the East Coast board of America, from Vermont all the way down to Florida and back. I was crisscrossing every single city, every single state, every week. When pandemic crippled me, clipped my wings, I stayed home and I started to ask myself some tough questions. How are you going to get out of this? So I've been teaching people about crisis resiliency, but I did not teach my family about financial resiliency. That took a toll on me, and it took a while for me to find some kind of breath. It is thanks to my wife that I started learning about financial resilience. And with your permission, Dr. For-Mukwai, allow me to share with you some ideas, what I learned on my journey, because I figure out that the most important thing we can do with respect to resilience is awareness. Why awareness? Because if you're not aware of an illness, if you're not aware of a situation, how do you treat it? So the first place for us to start is to start talking about financial awareness. And I'm speaking as someone who took the time to take a license and pass it. They call it a licensed financial professional. And that license gives me the permission to talk about some of the ideas that I'll be sharing with you this morning. So I want to just say, welcome aboard. Let's get comfortable. Let's share from the heart, not from the head, because the head has its own weird way of making everything too logical. I want to share from the heart, as someone who has been beaten, as someone who has been down in the trenches, as someone who has been hurt, as someone who has seen people crying, as someone who has seen people on the front lines that desperately hope for a better day tomorrow. So my examples, my ideas have been influenced by my previous career on the front lines. So very briefly, because we need to be concise, I want to talk about what we can learn from some elite families that have succeeded in becoming very financially resilient. I want to talk about some issues that are pervasive in our community. When I say community, our community of African immigrants, our community of writers, authors, creatives, I want to talk about that because I am part of that. I've published 2 books. I have a 3rd book coming out next week and a 4th one in the works. So yes, I am very much part of this community, and I hope that the perspective that I see it will be useful to you in some way. I want to talk about the fact that readiness is better than regret. So if you are in continental United States, I'd like you to drop a yes into the chat box, because some of the examples I'll be using come predominantly from United States. Drop a yes into the chat box if you are in continental United States. Okay, I see one yes. All right, just from Dr. Fumuso. Okay, one from Mr. Kennedy and one from Mr. Babila. Okay, thank you. Oh, okay. Mr. Babila is not in continental US. If you don't mind, I would say please drop where you're joining us from. That way, if I have an example from somewhere out of here, I'll be able to use that, because I've been fortunate to spend at least time working in 25 different countries. If I have an example from there, I'll give, but not promising. Okay, thank you. Okay, Germany. Oh my God, no. I don't have much about Germany. I've conducted some programs over there, but not so much in this area. If you are a first-generation professional, I believe that this information will resonate with you. If you own a business on the side, if you're a hustler, if you have a dream, if you're an author, a writer, a creative, I believe this information is relevant for you. Why did we leave our homeland? Without a doubt, I think it's because we wanted to find ways to improve the conditions of our families back home. Do you agree with me? We didn't just leave because we were searching for a place to go. We wanted in some way to find a better place to take care of our families back home. So yes, okay, Chen is in Australia. Mr. Chen is in Australia. Okay, perfect. So in fact, we're probably just about 3 or 4 of us in United States. Okay, doesn't matter. We should still think about what can we take from this that is relevant to the country in which you live. I wonder if anyone can recognize this guy. Anybody can recognize this guy? Okay, let me see. Is it Mr. Chen? Is it Madam Chen? Is it Miss Chen?
Miss Chen. Miss Chen.
Miss Chen. Okay, Miss Chen. All right. In the year 2000, in the land in which you live, Australia, Sydney 2000 Olympics, this guy, Eric Mosambani, he hails from Equatorial Guinea. He came to Sydney 2000 Games. He was a swimmer, and somehow he qualified for the final rounds. But when he got into the Olympic pool to swim, every other swimmer had come out on the other side, and Eric was still inside struggling, fighting to get to the other end. He was so slow, he took so long, the media had a field day. They said Eric was more like an L. They called him all kinds of names. And it was a very painful sight to watch, because the other guys really were so good that Eric almost felt like he was out of place. It got me thinking, do we have something in common with Eric? And I want to say yes. As writers, as authors, we have something in common with Eric. We are very good in what we do. But once we are taken from the environment in which we have been raised, the environment in which we have had great mastery, and we put into another environment, it becomes very difficult for us to survive. Eric had never had the opportunity to swim in an Olympic-sized swimming pool prior to going to Australia. So he grew up in Equatorial Guinea. He had the pleasure of trying out in big hotels, 5-star hotels, but there is nothing like an Olympic-sized swimming pool. It is different from anything else. So the reason Eric struggled is not that he was incompetent. The reason he struggled was that he was swimming with the sharks. Or shall I say, he was swimming in an environment that was totally different for him. Some of us, as we live in different countries, in more mature economies, in more sophisticated economies, we have not spent the time to learn the workings of the financial systems in the countries in which we live. So in a way, we are like Eric. We're struggling. We don't fully master how these systems work. It's not that we're incompetent, no, but we just have not been trained. We've not been raised that way. So the reason I think we're struggling with respect to financial resiliency in advanced countries in which we find ourselves as African immigrants is not that there's anything physically, mentally wrong with us. It's that the preparation that we've had, our parents, the generations before us, did not prepare us for this. And as first generation immigrants, it becomes very difficult because we have to be the ones to lay the pipework for future generations to survive. So that's why I say I can see that in some ways we are like Eric. And turns out, because bad things don't happen every day, we live with a false sense of security. Oh my God, everything is cool. Everything is good. But is everything really good? Not really. Sometimes things can change in a few seconds and we find ourselves at the bottom. We find ourselves scrambling. We find ourselves out of breath. That's what's happening within our community. And I'd like for us to explore some of the things that are happening within our community. But before we get to that, where were you in 2004 when the devastation, the Asia tsunami happened? Where were you? Please drop that into the chat box, because again, I don't want this to be a monologue. I don't thrive in monologues. I'm not a comedian. I'm not a performer. I'm just an ordinary educator. Where were you in 2004 when the Asia tsunami happened? All right, let's see. Okay. Prof was in Paris. Okay. Dr. Esana was in Germany. Dr. Babila was in Germany. Okay, Berlin. Okay, I was living, not Kennedy was in St. Louis, Missouri. I was living not too far off. Shen was in Zimbabwe. I was living in Singapore, not far off from the epicenter of that disease, of that mayhem. And some of my colleagues were dispatched to go and help out in the rescue. What day did it happen? Was on a Christmas day. Or was it the day after Christmas Day? Either was Christmas Day or the day after Christmas. People were basking out on the shores of Asia when that happened. It was a dark, dark moment. The devastation took well over 300,000 lives. One of the worst disasters in the last couple of decades. And the reason I bring this up is because just when you think that everything is cool, just when you think that everything is absolutely okay, you cannot predict the next second. You and I cannot predict the next second. However, the people that have knowledge, they would be able to recover better, to recover faster. There were two villages very close to the epicenter that most of the people, two villages, one of the villages, people completely perished. The other village, most of the people survived. What was the difference? One of the villages is called Langi. When that incident happened, the people had been trained, culturally given the information that whenever you get tremors, run to the mountaintop. When you run to the mountaintop, you'll be safe. In the other sister village, they did not have that message or that information passed down from generation to generation. So they all perished. And the village that perished did not perish because they could not find high ground. They perished because of the lack of knowledge. The village that survived to a large extent, it was because they had information. So information is key. Awareness is key. And that's just all that I want to do today. Last one, I want to give another example. At the Shangri-La Resort in Malaysia, which was also affected in Penang, there was a gentleman on duty called Captain Arifin. He was a lifeguard. When he observed the way that the size of the waves, he shook the red flag, and most of the people evacuated to high ground. Some of them, they laughed at him. They said, it's a crazy lifeguard. And those who did not evacuate based on his waving of the red flag, they perished in the water. Once again, those with knowledge, those who are able to take action were saved. Those who did not heed the action, did not heed the advice, they perished. Another one final example. On the beach, there was a young British girl who had studied about tsunamis in England. The parents were on vacation in Asia, in Thailand. When that child, a 12-year-old, saw the signs of the bubbling water, the child said to the mom, Mom, there's going to be a tsunami soon. We got to evacuate. We got to go to higher ground. The mother listened. A couple of other people evacuated, and the vast majority of others laughed at that little young girl. Several minutes later, when the waves slammed on the beach, a lot of people died. And the media covered that story. They called that young girl the angel on the beach. I say this because, once again, those with knowledge, those that are willing to take action, they would always do that. And those that are unwilling to take action, bad things can happen. We don't wish for bad things to happen, but they're just part of the human journey. Life is a series of ups and downs, twists and turns. And the good news is you're the protagonist of your life. You're the protagonist of your life. So am I. But along the way, we would encounter antagonists. And one of those ugly antagonists is financial crisis, financial issues that can undermine us and break our families apart. Within our community, what are we seeing? Since 2020 that I got licensed as a licensed financial professional, I've been seeing that there's a harsh reality in our community. Most of our people in America, and I would argue in Australia and in Germany, we're chasing the Australian dream, the German dream, and we are not taking enough time to acquire the tools and the knowledge for financial resilience. We have intellectual knowledge, we have intellectual resilience, but we don't quite have financial resilience. And that's what could break us, because knowledge without action is not sufficient. What about medical emergencies? I can't say this.
You seem to be muted.
My apologies. I think I accidentally muted myself. Is it better now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. In the context of America, well over 66.5% of bankruptcies are related to medical emergencies. Can you imagine how devastating that can be? It can happen to anyone. It can happen to anyone, regardless of the levels of income. So the question then is, when you reflect about yourself, reflect about your family, what kind of plans are you putting in place so that if the inevitable happens, you can bounce back, you can recover? That is something that we all need to think about. The pandemic taught us that we cannot always count on our incomes. At least for those of us who are in some specific fields, it can be very, very harsh. As a writer, as an author, it can be even trickier. And I believe that most of us are not full-time authors. However, whatever other job we're doing, if that income source is disrupted, what plans do you have in place? There is also another piece that says we are one prescription away from being uninsurable. So what can we do to make sure that while we are still healthy, we put in place the plans, the plan Bs, so that we can at least bounce back from medical emergencies. Not after we've been insured, not after we've been hurt, but before we get hurt. Because illness is a fact of life. Another area where we immigrant communities also suffer is our children are literally sinking in debt. Forget about our children. What about ourselves? I have over $100,000 in student debt. My wife has over $200,000 in student debt. Is this avoidable? For first generation, maybe I could say maybe it was not avoidable. But for our children, we have tools. There are tools out there that we can use, that we can see what elite families are doing. We can pick up those tools and help our children not to sink in college debt, college financial debt, like we are sinking. My wife has been paying for well over 10 years, at least $1,500 every month as a pharmacist, and the debt has not come down from $200,000. Why? Because you start first by paying the interest before you even get to the principal. So think about the children that we're raising. Think about our nephews, our nieces. What kind of advice can we give them that will help them not to be saddled with debt as some of us are? That's what this is all about, because these are problems that are holding us behind, holding our children behind. And yes, other communities are moving past us. Some Asian communities are moving faster than us. And we don't even need to talk about Jewish communities. And what is it that they're doing that we can learn from them? Another area where we are fairly not been very, very well exposed is the idea of probate court. Has anybody heard about probate court? It turns out it's not just an American phenomenon.
No.
Prof, have you heard about probate court?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else? In other countries, I believe they have the equivalent of that. In fact, I was talking to a colleague from Cote d'Ivoire. They have it in Cote d'Ivoire. I've not heard about it in Cameroon per se, but this lady from Cote d'Ivoire, her dad passed away, left a lot of property, but she could not access most of that property. Same thing in America. Once a person is pronounced dead, their accounts are frozen. Their bank accounts, investment accounts. And they cannot have access to their bonds, to their stocks. So the living members of the family would have to scramble and find other ways to be able to bury that person. And if it means taking their corpse home, that makes it even a lot more difficult. We have dozens and dozens of examples of people who were very wealthy, but when they pass away, the families had to go out there and start a GoFundMe. Not because these people were desperately poor, but because the accounts were frozen and they could not access these accounts in time to take care of their remains or to take care of the funeral. And when probate court starts, sometimes it could take 6 months, 8 months, 1 year, or even more. Have you ever wondered why there are so many GoFundMes in our community? This is partly the reason. I'm not saying that is the only reason, but it's partly the reason, because this is very prevalent in our community that we don't know about it. So I saw in the chat box, Mr. Babila said, no, he's not been familiar with it. So I would encourage Mr. Babila, please take some time and look up Germany, the rules around what happens when someone passes away. What happens to their accounts? I think these developed countries, they tend to learn from one another. I would not be surprised if it's the same phenomenon there. So in America, it's called probate court.
Most of Europe, it should be the same. Sorry for interjecting. I know.
No, go ahead, Prof.
Yeah, I know it exists very well in France and in England, where you die, everything is withheld until they resolve this. They pay off your debts.
Yes.
Your creditors own everything, or
Yes.
once they pay off that before you, I'll be surprised if Germany does not have it, because Belgium has it, Holland has it.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Bob. Because yes, these countries they share their notes, they share their secrets pretty well. And so the reason they do that, as Prof said, is because they want to assess how much do you owe on this home, how much you owe on this house. They want to take care of all your creditors, and the last person they're thinking about is your family. That's just the way that it happens. It's not like it's not wishful thinking. It is just the way that it happens. And my fear is that sometimes we may think that we're doing very well, but when we are gone, we leave the burden of that on our children. They may be unable to bury us. Our spouses. We know of a wealthy lady from Botswana who was here. The husband was here working as a top project manager for Walmart. And when the husband suddenly passed away, they had hundreds and thousands of dollars in their accounts. She could not access it. She literally had to go begging to take care of the children. And this woman, the last time I saw her about a year ago, she said the accounts have not yet been resolved because they were building properties here, they were building properties there, in addition to working for Walmart. So all of that, the more assets we have, the longer it could take to get all of this resolved. And the reason I bring this up is because you and I believe we have family that look up to us. As first generation immigrants, or maybe second generation, we are, in so many ways, we are some kind of hope to our family. We are a bridge to our family. So if this bridge is broken, what happens to the family? So we need to think about it from that perspective. Another area where we're often caught off guard, and I've been a victim of this, not directly but indirectly. Critical illness. When I came to America from Singapore, I was recruited by a gentleman in Orlando, Florida. So a white guy of French descent. He used to work for the American Navy in Singapore. So he found me running my training business very successfully. He said, I want you to come and help me set up a training division for my business because that's the one area in which I want to grow. I said, all right, let me come over. I came over. Within 6 months, this guy was sick. I was down in Orlando, Florida. Not just sick, he was so sick that they had to get him into emergency bypass surgery. He came out. Within 2 months again, he had to go back for a second round for another bypass surgery. And so suddenly somebody who had been working so hard for more than 23 years in the US Navy, he was vulnerable. He was filing for bankruptcy. And he had to leave his home in Fruitland Park, Florida, to go and live on a boat in Tampa Bay because he cannot afford to live in his own house. The house was being foreclosed upon and he had to move out. That's how he let me go. He cut me loose. He could not continue to pay me. He gave me $10,000. But what was $10,000 going to do with me? And that's where my trouble started. I went through quite a bit of thin and thick to be able to find my breath again in America. Because suddenly, I did not have a place or a ready income that I could depend on. So his problem was a heart attack, and he was given a limited life expectancy. Now, not just heart attack, stroke, cancer, coronary bypass, organ transplant, and all of these are critical illnesses that are once in a while striking within our community, just like they do within all communities. So my question for all of us is, are we ready for things like this? Do we have a plan B? How do we bounce back from that? Beyond critical, there's also chronic. Chronic is a little bit slower. Chronic takes a little bit more time, but it can equally put you in a very difficult situation that you cannot be up and running to go to work, like Alzheimer's, like chronic respiratory illness, heart disease, mental issues. All of these are things that slowly move like a smoldering disaster, and they can cripple us So the question then is, what kind of plans do we have in place for this? Sometimes when I meet with clients, they say, oh, Gideon, I got very good health insurance from work. I got very good insurance at work. I say, oh, I'm afraid what you have at work is not yours. Have you ever read the fine print? Okay, we're not going to talk about that today, but it's a whole ball game. What you have at work doesn't belong to you because the master card of that belongs to the company, not to you. You're just a footnote on that insurance policy that is given from your work. Some people say they have 401k that they can borrow from. I say, well, you can borrow from 401k, but are you aware that there are penalties if you're less than 59 and a half? So 401k is definitely not a silver bullet. It can be helpful, but it is not a silver bullet that you can say you're going to borrow from so easily. The workplace insurance too is not a silver bullet because it does not belong to you. It does not belong to me. And sometimes they only cover illnesses when you fall sick on the job or when something bad happens to you while you're there. If you're off duty, you're doing something else, they may not cover you. When we lived in Oregon, myself, my wife, she worked at a local hospital in Seaside, Oregon. There's a physician there who went skiing next door in Washington, and he collapsed and died on the ski site. He did not get any help from the insurance from work. In fact, the wife had to move out of the place where they lived in Seaside because things became so difficult for her and the children within a matter of months. And it was very, very embarrassing for a family to pack and leave within a matter of 2 months because the mother or the wife was a stay-home mother. So what are some of the solutions that the elite families are using? Just want to share two of them with you. One of them, they use annuities. Annuities can be fixed, they can be indexed, they can be variable. Why are they important? They're important because you can have a predicted flow of income from a certain amount of time. Once you have set up an annuity, you set it up in such a way that you can start receiving the money within 30 days, or you can set it up in such a way that you can set it up, you can start receiving it within a few years, and that continues like that for a certain amount of time. So very, very important. Annuities are one of the vehicles that we see wealthy families are using. The other vehicle that they're using that in our community is kind of like a taboo. People don't want to talk about life insurance. Unfortunately, it's true that it is one of the safest instruments that wealthy families, elite families are using. Sad but true. They use this bucket abundantly. And you will not believe that banks like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they buy in billions life insurance. It begs the question, if we as individuals think that life insurance is not good, why is that the top banks in America invest heavily in this area? Why? Because FDIC tells them this is one of the most liquid forms of investments that you can have for yourselves for rainy days. So I have a chart that shows you how much Bank of America is putting. It's more than 24 billion in life insurance. Wells Fargo, and even non-banking organizations, they buy life insurance for themselves because it is one of the safest buckets that you and I can also use to use it in a rainy day. I know within our community has a bad rep, but the honest truth be told, this is one of the most powerful buckets that we can use for rainy days. If I go to that website, you will see companies such as KFC, you see companies such as Procter & Gamble, they have billions of dollars that are stashed away in life insurance. So it is definitely one of the buckets that you should consider. And the good news too is life insurance and fixed index annuities do not go through probate court. Every other asset that we you and I have, they tend to go through probate court, but life insurance doesn't go through probate court. Okay, I see Mr. Gee has a question. I'm almost wrapping up, so please just give me a few more, like 3 more minutes, 3, 4, 5 minutes, and then we can take some questions. And the good news too with it is that it can grow within a protected bucket. Protected in the sense that the government cannot access it. If you die, the government cannot access it. Whatever is stated in your face value will be given to your family, even if all the other accounts have been blocked. So that is certainly one of the areas where I want to encourage you, do your own homework. If you want me to recommend books, I'm happy to do, so that you can come to a place where you feel like, oh my God, you know what? I believe that there is information out there, like in the case of Tsunami Day. Those who had information, those are the ones that survive. Those that did not have information, no awareness, no action, those are the ones that struggled. So I would say financial resilience starts with awareness, but also it starts with action. All right, go ahead, Mr. G. I'm done. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. This was great, and thank you for bringing your global experience to this discussion. I just wanted you to go over a little bit how you talk about institutional investment in life insurance, which that part is understood. How are they buying life insurance as institutions? Like the
Great
large
question.
banks.
Great question. Fantastic. All right, they buy it in the form of ensuring their senior executives and giving them very high bonuses. They call them key employee protections. When they do that, they know that when that employee passes away or that employee quits, they can recover some of that money to train someone to take their job. So there is a provision in the US tax code that enables big corporations to invest in life insurance, not on the organization itself, but through those that work for them. Key employees, that's the name. And then they also have bonus programs. All of them, they are structured to be under life insurance. And what type of life insurance? Very often is life insurance with living benefits, because there are different types of life insurance. But the one that we often recommend to some of our clients are the ones that have living benefits. Why living benefits? So you can draw money from them while you're still alive, not only when you're dead. You can draw money from them, like in the case of my American employer, while he was having that double bypass surgery and using his savings, he could have relied on life insurance if he had that. But because he'd worked mostly overseas, he'd not saved in that bucket, and so he didn't have it. So that's why he was going bankrupt. But yes, there is a way for this to be structured, and I can guarantee you, sir, if you have some time, we can sit down, we can demonstrate how that happens.
Yeah, just let me thank you. I think you explained that well. I just want to be clear a little bit more. So you are saying top managers at these major institutions are insured by their companies as if in the same way that an individual would take insurance on a family member or something like that.
Yes, sir.
And they
Yes,
are the benefactors.
yes,
the
the
institution is
organization.
the benefactor.
The organization, though, it is set up in such a way that it is not the employee that receives the money, it is the organization that receives the money. That's why we're able to trace. There's a website from federal government where we can trace at every given moment which organization is saving more money in life insurance than the others. And these are things that came out of the 2008 financial crisis, whereby they realized that most of the banks, they owed more than they had within to be able to take care of their needs. So they asked themselves, what other instruments can we use to protect ourselves in event of sudden crisis? They found out that life insurance was one of the safest buckets that is protected and grandfathered within the US tax code. That's why organizations are putting so much in it, and the elite American families put a lot of it into that. There's a book called What Would the Rockefellers Do? It talks about how the Rockefellers, they were not as wealthy as the Vanderbilts, but they put a lot of their money into life insurance, which is not material. The Vanderbilts invested a lot in property. Don't get me wrong, property is not all bad. But with property, there's a lot of depreciation. Cut forward 100 years, who is more wealthy? The Rockefellers still continue to perpetuate their money more than the Vanderbilts. We almost don't even hear the name of the Vanderbilts anymore because they choose liquid assets, whereas the others choose physical assets. And I say that to indicate that if you go read what would the Rockefellers do, you come away like, oh my God, I could not believe this is the system in which I live. We are swimming in a shark-infested water, but nobody gives us this information often. It's like Eric swimming in the Olympic pool out of Equatorial Guinea, so to speak. Was that helpful, Mr. Gee?
Yes, very much. Thank you. Thank you. I just didn't think of that. I know that there are churches that do it. They will insure some of their members, and the benefit goes to the church after they take the expense of the they give something to the family for the expense. I didn't know that large institutions were doing that. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. In fact, I've spoken with some pastors that are considering to get this for themselves because it would protect the church, just as it also protects the church as a going concern, as an entity that wants to be out there in perpetuity. So yes, spoken to some pastors. They've not taken it yet, but more and more small business owners within our community are getting this in millions, not even just small numbers. Like once they understand it, they're like, oh no, I did not know this. It's quite eye-opening, and I would say the few that are getting it, they almost have to reach a cap whereby the government says, no, you cannot go beyond this because you'll be compromising the laws of the tax code. You cannot go more than 12 million if your income is within a certain category. 12 million is the maximum. But we know someone from our community within the DMV that wanted to go more than that. Why? Because if they're not there, it goes into their family accounts. If they're still there, they want to borrow from it, they can take from it and do whatever they want to do while they're still alive. Prof has put a question in the chat box. Can Watford consider investing in life insurance? That's a tough one, Prof. let me tell you why. If Watford is a non-profit, yes, it's a non-profit. If it can demonstrate that it cannot function without some key members, yes. But if it cannot demonstrate that, if it's a non-profit that is run by volunteers and there are no permanent staff, it can be tricky. Now, if you had an executive director, I think they can make a case for, look at the structures of our organization. For us to be able to exist, we need an executive director who has the institutional knowledge about what we do. If this executive director is not there, it's going to cost us this much to train somebody new and get them to a level whereby they'll be able to operate. Now, I think they can structure that. And I work as a guy that would find people, introduce them, then send them to the higher ups to do the final structuring. But I have some basic knowledge to say, if it can be demonstrated that Watford cannot function without key individuals, then I think it's possible. If not, I think they will not accept that. Yeah, go ahead. I see there's a new hand up. Not a new hand, a hand. And it would be nice if you at least show your face when you ask a question. Yeah, okay. Thank you, madam.
Dr. Gideon, thank you so much. I have a quick question. My name is Raina Linares Jones, and I want to be specific about writers and authors who have inconsistent forms of income. So, what does financial resilience look like for writers and authors?
Whew, that's a tough one. I can relate because when my second book came out, my income was up through the roof. And as the months went down, it kind of died down now. Granted, I speak a lot at conferences. So whenever I'm going to a conference, I've been trained on how to negotiate and get a conference, buy some books as I'm going out there. So I'm going to Atlanta next week, the subsequent week in Chicago, and each of these areas, they're buying copies of my books. Not enough to make me a great living. However, if a new book comes out, I'm going to see another income spike. So I totally agree with you. Our incomes can go up and down, up and down. The best forms of resilience for us would be to invest in programs that are affordable, that we cannot stop paying when we have not paid beyond a certain amount of years, that the policies can grow by themselves and start to perpetuate. Now, in other words, if you're within the first 5 years, within the first 15 years, do not take something that is too ambitious. Don't go for $1 million policy. Don't go for a $2 million policy. Go for something that is affordable within the context of your age and your health status, so that even in the rainy months, your payments are not interrupted. Because there are some forms of insurance out there that if you miss a single payment, it becomes null and void. There are some that if you set it up right, even if you miss a couple of payments, the policy is still valid because it has accumulated what they call some cash value, and that cash value keeps it going. However, beyond a certain amount of time, that cash value can all be used up. So to cut a long story short, if you're starting out and the main source of your income is writing, I would say don't go for an amount that is too ambitious. Go for something that is affordable, because half a piece of loaf is better than no loaf at all. And cut it within your budget. And then as your income goes up, you can continue to scale it up. Here's what I've done. I got some policies for myself that allowed me to pay within my means. But once pandemic started, I was paying just as much. As the pandemic grew longer, my income started to go up. Then I went in and put in a little bit more money, and it generated more interest for me. Now, pandemic has completely, it's over. My income it's kind of like up and down. Instead of paying per year as I used to pay back then, now I'm paying it per quarter. So I'm still doing a lot of projects. I'm still doing a lot of consulting. So in the months that is very good, I put in a little bit more. In the months that are very bad, I just made the minimum. So I say that to indicate that it's possible that when you're setting it up, seek advice so that you do not suffocate yourself from the other activities that you need to take care of in your life.
And you're speaking specifically about setting up the life insurance, or are you talking about other forms of insurance?
Okay. There are basically about 3 forms of life insurance. And why we say it is worthy is because it is a protected bucket, just like fixed index annuities. Those are the ones that the government cannot get them frozen. So whether it is that or it's an annuity, I would say do not go for something that will overwhelm your resources. Go for something that is reasonable. Whichever type you go for something that is reasonable. However, some of them are not very helpful, because if you miss a single payment, you're gone. Some of them you can miss some payments in the rough months and your policy is still there, it's still valid. So if you're making a decision, make a decision for one that even if you skip a payment or two because of maybe you're busy or you're traveling, your investment should not be forfeited, or what you've been putting in should not be forfeited. So choose the ones that would allow you the opportunity to continue to have access to it whenever you return from your trip.
Okay.
Is that helpful, ma'am?
I think I have some more thinking to do around this, but
please.
So are you suggesting that you can draw from your life insurance when times are okay?
Yes,
I've known
depending on
people
the
to
type
do that.
that you have.
Yeah, I've known people to do that. It's actually like more beneficial for them to take out a loan from their life insurance than to go another
Yes.
route. So, okay.
Yes.
Well, unfortunately, Dr. Gideon, I have to hop off because I have another call, but this was so great. Look forward to reviewing the recording.
Thank you. If you are open to catching up or me giving some ideas, I'm happy to do that. You can scan this or you can drop your number in the chat box and we can set a time that's comfortable for you. No pressure, just sharing and like this, like I said, knowledge is the first, most powerful instrument that you need to survive in a shark-infested water. So if you drop your number there, I can get in touch, and then we can make a time to discuss. And if I can help you, I'll be happy to send it to someone else. I have my mentors here, so my word is my bond. My word is my bond. I don't do sleazy stuff that people do out there. I mean this because I have the right reasons, and I've gone through some painful moments. I know how difficult it is, and I would not hurt anyone on this journey.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. Kenneth says, I'd like to connect with you after the meeting. Thank you, sir. Can you drop your number there or your email, whatever is comfortable for you, sir? I think that's one of the ways we can take the conversation forward. This was not meant to answer all questions. It was meant to just get the conversation started, and then we can talk, and then you make an informed decision about your resources. So cell phone, email, whatever you're comfortable. And if you're not comfortable, don't give it. I don't need it.
You guys, both of you are on the WAFOD forum, so it is easy for both of you to trace each other.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you just, Brother Kennedy, you simply check his name on the WAFOD platform and get the number from there, and vice versa.
Yes. Brother Kennedy, you have the right to reach out to me anytime. I appreciate that. And same thing with Madame Reynald. She scanned my code. Okay, thank you, ma'am. Are you also, Madame Reynald? Are you also on the?
She's a WAFODian.
Okay, all right. There is so much information. I just did not want to overwhelm people that I respect, people that that I look up to. I just wanted to give you a little teaser about so much more that is out there in this area. So, but any last question? Can I take one more question, Rev?
Take a last question if there is a last question.
Okay. Yes, I see there is one beautiful question from Dr. Babila. He's asking about the pros and cons of our African traditional financial systems. We know most of these Western financial systems don't really coincide with our needs, or they don't align with our mindset. So,
yes, that's a very good question, and for the right reasons, because yes, we are Africans, and we've grown up in systems that are financially very simple and simplistic. We know our Njangis, some places they call it tontine, some places they call it different names. They're good, but one of the disadvantages of those is that they do not accrue interest over the years. I spent like 3 years paying for a term insurance policy, which gained me nothing. Term insurance, very affordable, very cheap, but doesn't give you anything. If you miss one payment, it's null and void. But once I discovered that there are other forms of insurance that may a little bit more expensive, but they give you living benefits, and the best part, they allow for compounding of your money, I said, this is a no-brainer. I invested in that because the money grows by compound interest. In other words, this year, if there was an additional 2,500 that came in as interest, next year the compounding will start from that principal plus the 2,500, and then plus what I've gained over the last 3 years. So from 2020 to now, when I discovered this, I can tell you this: every single year, if I put my money in a regular bank checking account or savings account, I will make from maybe $1 or $2 or $3. But the moment I put that same amount of money in a compounding life insurance plan, I'm getting well over $3,000 a year. Not guaranteed. Some years may be a little bit more, some years may be a little bit less. But the good news is that it continues to compound. And so if you look at the compounding over 15 years, I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, the numbers you would be shocked how well 15 years of compounding can be. That's something that these instruments, founded from the time of the Romans, are better than our traditional African tontines, jangi, and so on and so forth. And jangi too also depends on the faith and the truthfulness of the others. The systems are surrounded by more rigid regulatory environments. So I can say that long-term planning, retirement planning, this is much better. This is more dependable than putting it in our traditional setting. Not against that, but I'm just saying that where you plant your tree for rainy days, it matters. Are you planting it in a valley? Are you planting it on the side of a hill? Are you planting it on top of a hill? I think that decision is yours to make.
And just in addition to that, the fact is that we don't have, I mean, some countries in Africa are doing so now, but we don't have investment systems. Unlike here, where they can take your money and invest it and share some of that profit with you. We don't have that necessarily working effectively in most African economic systems. So, so most of these, the Mbuda and all of that, I don't know how they work exactly, but how do they return profit when they are not making profit as an institution or as a group? And
Yes.
and they sometimes, like what you said, sometimes they take away from your money. You pay fees to the bank,
Yes.
and so if your money sat down there after a certain period of time, and they are charging you fees, it will be taken away then to instead of compounding in some way.
Yes, sir.
But you have to look very carefully in which of the banking systems in Africa you can invest in.
Absolutely.
I just want, if I don't know if you're done, I wanted to make a real quick comment to Dr. Indy here.
Please.
Uh, Doc, I think you brought up an important point about whether power can buy insurance per his you know talk.
Yeah.
I don't know whether we are quite there, but I think we should probably do a meeting where we can discuss income generation ideas for power. I mean, for an institution that has been around since 1989, I think if we operate on some economic principles and begin to think, financially, the organization should be profitable by now. It shouldn't be run by, a volunteer force, and maybe even be able, because the way we can encourage more African authors, we that write, we know first of all it's hard to start the publication process, the marketing process, and all of that costs money. But maybe power can get to the point where we are able to empower, first-time authors or something like that for them to get their work out.
Yes.
So
But
true.
there should be a meeting around this, principally, and you can bring in, financial heads, like Dr. Gideon
Yeah.
and others, so that we can, have some viable discussion about this. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. I think that is more than a welcome proposal, and I will take it seriously. Dr. Gideon, you already have a prompt for the next, conversation that we'll be having with the general body, the bigger power body, to see how we could brainstorm possibilities of income generation for power. And I see Dr. Isona has a question. Was the question about insurance for power as a business or a group insurance for members? All right. Well, it is. Dr. For-Mukwai, do you want to answer that question for me? Let me not dabble into something I don't have mastery
Okay.
of.
Thanks, Prof. I think if it's group insurance, it's fairly straightforward. You can we can connect you with people that can design that, but we don't necessarily do that. As a licensed financial professional, the companies that I'm affiliated with, they do not necessarily provide group insurance, but that's possible. However, just want to clarify, the group insurance thing it's very easy to get in, but it is not a very dependable thing for we as people who our families look up to us. I want to clarify that. Your family is counting on you that in a rainy day something can, they can get something to take care of themselves. that will not serve that purpose very well. However, if it's for power as a business, that's the answer that I've given earlier. That if it can be established that there are some key members that without them, power will not function, yes, it can be done, even if it's a non-profit, because even churches can get that. So I hope that I was clear on that. For members, as group insurance, that's feasible. We can make the connections for that. But as something that can generate income for the organization long term, and you can even put into a trust, then they will be asking some questions. And I think the person who will be asking those questions is not me, it's someone who is an underwriter within the group of companies that we work with. We don't work with one company, work with a series of them so we can make recommendations accordingly. But for Prof's question, yes, I think we may even suggest some people that you can bring on the panel to talk about what are some of the activities that you can use to generate more money, to put into a fund for future purposes for riders or emerging riders or for special projects.
Right. That's the knowledge and action part of your talk earlier on. You have to have knowledge and you have to take action.
Yeah,
Yes,
we're going to follow up on that. We're going to follow up on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate you, Prof. Appreciate you, Reverend, for the opportunity, and appreciate all of you for making the time on a Saturday, because you could have been doing other things. So I appreciate you so much, and blessings to everybody.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gideon. That has been great, very loud and clear. And I think we need to follow up in a way. That's the whole thing. So I just want to make it a bit clearer. So Dr. Gideon is actually can actually help us to get engaged in these insurance policies. So if you think you need him, he's in the group. So just search him up, scan his code, and maybe talk to him. He can lead in any way to help. We are all interested in securing our future. Thank you so much. I'm really down from the flu. So
Sorry.
thank you. So yeah, we honor and thank you for coming, and have a blessed Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Cheers.